Didn't you hear? We're going into liquidation. The store is closing. Everything must go. All the players must go. Everybody must go. Didn't you hear, you guys? We're in liquidation. Let's talk about it. Welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. Let's do this. We've sold all the players. All of them. At least that's what we're trying to do. Literally, Arsenal is trying to sell everybody that they have. Everybody. After the Callum Chambers news, it was kind of like, okay, so why do we keep just getting rid of players, but we're not bringing anybody in? Then this morning, I see news about Aubameyang being an option for Juventus and Barcelona, and they've made confirmed offers or offers that are more substantial, whatever that means. And then Nketiah news. Nketiah apparently is on the brink of signing for Newcastle. And so we're not going to have any strikers. Lacazette is going to be walking back into Colony, and there's not going to be anybody else there but him to score the goals. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting last couple of days of the transfer window, because we always know that a lot can happen or very little can happen based on what the club decides to do and what can be done. And we know a lot of this ends up being a domino effect. One player goes, then another player goes, then another player goes, and that's how the transfer deadline goes. But I feel like that's why we have to kind of keep our powder dry just a little bit. I know that seeing two strikers look like they have one foot out the door feels like, of course, somebody's coming in. But the reality is until they leave the club, we may not be getting anybody in. So let's just hold our horses. But it seems like Arsenal are at least prepared to move Aubameyang on, move Nketiah on, and potentially bring in a new striker in January. There's 50 of you guys here. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'm going to go ahead and bring in we'll call him my co-host this time. I mean, he's a guest, but whenever he comes, he's kind of like a co-host. He co-hosts with me. Sometimes I have to leave and I let him host, and you guys probably like him a little bit more. But yeah, we'll bring him in. It's Souls is here. I wish I had a clappy thing.
Yeah, we need one of those, what are the Stream Deck thingies in it, just with all the weird sound effects. Yeah, we need Terry to hook us up with one of them, with his baby voice and the moany little voices he does.
We need one of those for sure. But has this not been the silly season ever? It feels like, maybe because it's condensed and it's all in a month, it just feels like the fan base is see, I just went clear. Yes, you see how I just went clear? My thing went clear. But the fan base just feels a lot there's a lot. You could feel it in the fan base, and it feels different. During the summer transfer window, we kind of got signings over a period of time, but this one feels like if we're going to get any signings, it's going to go right down to the wire. And yeah, how have you felt during this transfer window? Do you think that do you feel like we're going to make signings? Do you think that we should temper our expectations, or are the rumors of certain players leaving giving you more hope that something is definitely going to happen?
It's a bit of a weird window because we're showing intent, we're showing signs of wanting to be a big club again in the way that we were aggressive with Vlahovic. I think the only frustration was we didn't set an internal deadline in terms of, okay, we'll give you till, I don't know, the 14th, 15th, 16th even, whatever, to make a decision. But whilst that's going on, we go and address other situations. Because the thing is, clearly the club must have known that they're getting rid of Maitland-Niles, they're getting rid of nketiah, or if an offer comes in that's substantial, that they're going to let him go. Kohler, Marie, Chambers kind of came out of nowhere, but I'm guessing they had an inclination if something happens, they'll let him go, especially if they're only letting him go for the reported 2-3 million. That means they're just trying to get rid of him anyway. And I think that side of me is a bit frustrated. You knew you're letting go of these players without planning or trying to bring someone in, unless there's something in the pipelines and we're just not aware of it. And obviously that'll come to fruition in the next few days, I guess. But for me, I'm kind of happy and I'm kind of sad. It's a weird one because they're showing the intent, they're showing that they want to be a big club and try and get the big players in, especially with their promise, let's say in the summer, where they said we're going to bring in the players to fill in the gaps in the team, and then we're going to bring our big players in the coming. The reports were we were going to get a midfielder or a striker in the winter, and then the opposite position in the summer, and they somewhat are trying, but the reality is until they don't bring that in, it's still a broken promise. So yes, as much as I'm glad they're trying, I'm a bit disappointed that we've not had a contingency or a plan B or shown the intent and put a deadline, which a lot of big clubs would have done. So I'm a bit in the middle. I'm not overly pissed off. I'm not like, oh my God, we need to get Edu out. And I'm not willing to give him time at the same time because I'm like, there's few amateurish mistakes from whoever does the negotiations. So yeah, I'm a bit in the middle of the feelings.
Yeah, I definitely hear that. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, well, if you're giving them the benefit of the doubt, which is difficult to do because it's not like we haven't known about this transfer window, but it's the January transfer window. It's a very difficult window to get things done. If we look at the amount of deals that have been, signed, sealed, and delivered for, at the top end of the table, it hasn't been much. It hasn't been much. And when I look at the teams, to me, that probably need to make signings, Manchester United, Spurs, Arsenal, West Ham, we haven't done much. Like, we really haven't. And it's because the January transfer window is really difficult. And even if you don't like your club, they usually do have some sort of plan. And there's a reason why people don't spend a lot of money in the January window and everything kind of gets pushed to the summer. And not only that, Arsenal are trying to go after big players. We're not trying to get, the players that we went after in the summer, you could probably have gotten them in January, besides probably like Ben White. These are big signings, so it's going to be difficult to get them out of their clubs in this short amount of time. So I hear that part. But there's been an opportunity presented to us really with there's two things. There's an opportunity to get into the top four and actually being able to secure top six and put daylight between us and the teams behind us. And so we have to get that done. For me, the midfield signing secures top six. The striker signing pushes us into serious contenders for top four. And so I'm hoping that the club is looking at that as an opportunity. But could you maybe see why they'd be reluctant to maybe spend the money now? Because we are kind of in that space. Like, we could actually push for those positions. Do you think that there's any excuse for them in terms of maybe not getting the deals over the line because maybe their main big targets they can't get in January and this window is difficult? Or do you see it like we're a big club, we should be able to get this stuff done?
A bit of both. Because if you look at the realities of how the fixtures are in the next 2 months, we're only playing, we're averaging a game every 2 weeks. We've got, I think, 4 games in 8 weeks or something weird like that anyway, because there's the FA Cup weekend and then there's a Carabao Cup weekend. And then it's weird how the fixtures have like kind of piled on. But we're not playing for 8 weeks, so we will have enough opportunities to bring most of the first team back. And if we're looking at the outgoings and we're looking at it with a level head, if we're looking at Maitland-Niles, Marie, Chambers, they're averaging about 5 games this season. So it's not like they featured a huge amount this season. So I can understand them feeling like, okay, we can let them go for a little bit of a fee or just to have those wages cleared up and have that deadwood out of the team now so we're ready for the summer window. It kind of was the same as when before this window where there was a lot of outgoings in January in terms of loaning out Kolasinac straight into the window and, letting a few deals go. Ozil was gone, etc. There was pre-agreements and everything. So I do see a bit of pre-planning into the summer so they don't have to worry about outgoings and they can just focus their energy on bringing players in because they'll know this is what we've got, this is what we've freed up already, and this is what we can go and like allocate to X, Y, and Z. And it can turn into a good thing. But for me, if we want, like for example, we lost out on Vlahovic for one of the key reasons is because we didn't get Champions League football, nor can we guarantee a player that we can get, Champions League. It's all going to be with you coming into this project, we project we can get top four, but there's no guarantee. We don't know what United pull out of the bag or what Spurs go and pull out of the bag, or whether we can be consistent. That player that we bring in could get injured. Like anything can happen. It is football at the end of the day. Or we can have multiple other injuries and COVID cases, and things just kind of shoot themselves in the foot in that case. So I'm not. I understand it from one perspective, but on the other hand, why not secure top four or try and at least show the ambition that you're trying to compete? Because to me right now, it shows the Cronkies as everything that we've seen them to be, which is they're not going to compete. When it gets to, because this is the prime time to show your intent. Yes, we're not going to win the league, but it shows that, yes, you can bolster your squad enough to at least show the intent that you're going to go for top four. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, bring a Vlahovic in, or bring a Basuma level in or an Awar in, but just show something that you're trying. Even if they bring the Arthur deal in, I'll be like, okay, fair enough. I can understand it's winter. You're never going to get your plan A, but at least try and get plan B or plan C. Just bolster the midfield, bolster that striking position, which we all evidently know needs improving. So that's the worry for me, is that we're not investing when it's the price. And we could be looking back and going, if we had spent the money in January, we'd be in the Champions League. Or we could even, worst case scenario, we could be like, shit, we could have been in Europe.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is there's no point in worrying about the summer window if you don't secure your position in this window, and I just feel like I think all you need is the midfield signing in order to secure top six. I think that's pretty much what it would take. I think the team is good enough with an additional midfielder to ensure that when Thomas Partey and Jack are not there, we can keep that level. The striker signing does get you closer to top four. And I just feel like if you let this opportunity go and we don't finish in the top six and we don't improve the squad, then what's the point of going to your big targets then and saying like, okay, well, yeah, now we want you. You have to be able to offer them something that they can't get somewhere else. And for some of these players that we're looking at, your Ruben Neves is probably, your Basumas, maybe your Dominic Calvert-Lewins, your Isaks, these types of players, they're going to want Europe. And right now we haven't secured it. And so you kind of do have to push something forward. And that's why I would expect them to take this opportunity serious, because it won't be cute asking people to come to Arsenal with 2 years in a row with no European football. It's not going to be cute. But I think if we can roll it back just to the, getting rid of players and the squad, I found that I think a little bit of the, oh my gosh, like we're getting rid of all these players and we're not replacing, a little bit of a reactionary type of thing, because you have to look at every single player and say like, okay, well, how many minutes would they actually be getting? Some of these guys weren't even making the squad, and you're going to have Pepe coming back. You're going to have El Neni coming back. So when I look at it, I think, well, here's the numbers. Adam Vogue, who does a lot of good like statistical data and stuff like that on Arsenal on Twitter, put out the players that had left and how many minutes they had actually played. So Ainsley Maitland-Niles, and this is in, let's see. Hold on. Okay, so this is in 2021, 2022. Ainsley Maitland-Niles has 268 minutes. Pablo Marie had 180 minutes. Callum Chambers had 170 minutes. Said Kolasinac has 91 minutes. And Eddie Nketiah has 55 minutes. And when you actually remove the first 3 games of the season where we didn't have our team, it drops drastically from there. Without the first 3 games, Ainsley is the only one who really keeps his same amount of time. Pablo Marie without the first 3 games, 0 minutes. Calum Chambers, 0 minutes. Said Kolasinac, 1 minute. And nketiah, 55 minutes. So when you look at it that way, it's you have Cedric, you have Holding, Tomiyasu can play center back. The one that really stands out to me is Ainsley Maitland-Niles. That is the one that stands out to me because he was playing minutes. He was kind of an important midfield piece for us. The time in which we really needed him was in that period of time that in January, and he wasn't there because he was playing right back for Roma. And so when you look at it that way, you could say that we haven't really gotten rid of important members of the squad. These guys aren't really going to be getting playing time. We're not going to be playing in any cups, but there is a point to be made about midfield, right? And that we do have midfielders, but they tend not to be that reliable. So do you kind of share that same feeling that maybe the whole we're getting rid of our entire squad and we're not replacing is a little bit short-sighted when we know that a lot of these guys are dead wood, and that sucks to say, but Pablo Marie, Calum Chambers, and Said Kolasinac and Eddie Nketiah are all dead wood, and we had to get rid of them at some point. So is it okay if you look at it that way, or do you actually think that there is a point that we should be reacting this way because we've really brought down the squad to maybe about 20 players?
I mean, I think this came from a direct reaction to us being out of the cups. I think if we were still maybe compete, especially the FA Cup, because there's still quite a lot of rounds to go, we probably won't see as many players. We probably wouldn't see as many outgoings. But the fact that we've only got the Premier League to play, and the fact that we're again, to bring it in, we're averaging, in the next 2 months, we're averaging a game every 2 weeks. I think they're looking at it in a way of there's the chances of players getting injured for a long period of time is probably a lot shorter, and they'll probably come back for the following game and they'll have enough breaks in between games, and we're probably going to be playing once a week even in the busy periods. And it's only the only time we'll probably play twice a week is the ones where we've postponed, obviously, like the Spurs game, for example. We'll have to obviously catch that up at some point, but they're looking at it, and they're looking at it in a way of, can we do with a thinner squad and get something out of these players? I like that thought, but for me, the one I'm a bit like, oh, we probably could have done, just because he's a good squad player, was Ainsley, because he can cover right back, he can cover left back, and he can cover in midfield. And to be fair to him, every time he's come in, he's actually looked quite good, in my opinion, in comparison to how we deemed him and our expectation of his performances. He's probably exceeded expectations this season. A lot of people wrote him off and said, never is he going to be a midfielder for Arsenal. But this season, he's shown that as a squad player, someone who can be bought in for a game, like, for example, the Watford game, he was brilliant. And these are the moments where we could regret selling him. But then on the flip side, we've got El Neni coming back. We'll have Lokonga. We've got Partey, and we've got Xhaka. Of course, Xhaka and Partey, like you've mentioned in the past as well, they've been very, unreliable in terms of, what is it, 7 games they've played together out of like the 25, 26 that we've had. So it's shocking to say, because it's less than, it's a very low percentage of number of games that they've played together. And it's not great, because we need them, and we've scored like 20, 25 goals with them being in the squad, and we've only lost 2 games. And it's the record with and the drop off without them, it's just too significant for us to just be letting players go. Because for me, if I want to, at the moment, would I want to see El Neni or Ainsley in the team? I'd rather see Ainsley, just because he offers a little bit more technically in terms of forward passing and forward thinking, whereas with El Neni, he's more of a stopper or a finisher in a game, where you kind of just want him to reassure the game and just control it, bring the tempo down and kill the game off. And so it's a bit annoying, because we're going to have to use El Neni, and we shouldn't really be in a situation where that becomes the next option. And that's, I think, the disappointing thing. I do hope that some miraculous madness happens, that we go and get 2 players deadline day or over the weekend. But you know what? To be fair, every time there's a bit of silence at Arsenal, they do come with an absolute signing. They've always done this where no one knew Thomas Partey would have happened on deadline day, and all of a sudden we've just triggered his release clause at the very last minute where all hope was dead. So I just don't understand why they've left it so late. And if it is a release clause signing, I'd be even more pissed off because I'd be like, why did you just do this sooner? And we could have been in a better position. We could have been 5-6 points into top four and not being worried about the league as much. And we might have been in a cup as well. So it swings and roundabouts. I do think we should have maybe held on and sold them a little bit later. But at the same time, I'm not bothered that they've gone. So it's a bit of it is what it is.
Yeah, it's more Ainsley. The rest of them are kind of like, I mean, I get it, because if something crazy were to happen, we would be really short. But we know for the most part, Arteta has been gung-ho about playing damn near the same lineup every single week. He's not really interested in rotating this season. He knows who his team is. So you're either there or you're not. But I think, with the silence of the Nketiah thing, nobody knew that Nketiah was even talking to Newcastle. The silence of the Chambers thing, I think it is giving people some more hope that maybe there is something happening in the background, because quite frankly, something kind of does need to be happening in the background. It really does. But let's talk about Aubameyang first. He's been, an option for Juventus and Barcelona. And it's interesting because it's really dependent on what happens with Morata. If Morata, who's at Juventus, ends up going to Barcelona, then Juventus will come in and go for Aubameyang. If Morata stays at Juventus, which they are trying to get rid of him, but if he does stay at Juventus, then Aubameyang will go to Barcelona. But it's contingent on whether Barcelona can get Dembele off the books, because essentially they need to be able to give Dembele's wages to Aubameyang. I mean, Barcelona are scant. You know that. So, that one's an interesting one. But I think we all kind of know that Aubameyang is not in Arteta's plans. It's already been said. People know that it's just not happening. But I want to read out two different comments, because I think that it kind of summarizes where we are with Aubameyang. Roberto says, if Aubameyang and Arteta start acting like grown-ups and start to work for the club like men, then Aubameyang would be like a new signing. We will not get better than he is when has his head in the right place. And James T says, we should forget about Abba. He wasn't playing well for a long time, so let's not pretend. So don't pretend he can start smashing in goals. Sadly, he won't. There's a divide there. And I think a lot of this really comes from not being 100% sure that we're going to bring in a striker. And the last thing that we remember from the season before we went into the break is Lacazette missing the sitter. So whoever's not playing all of a sudden becomes world-class when you're sick and tired of the options that you have. And I think, and I'll ask you about this, is that a lot of people are assuming that it's Arteta that just wants to get rid of Aubameyang and he's done and he's done with him and he's not in his plans. But is there not maybe a chance that Aubameyang doesn't want to play for Arsenal anymore and he's ready to go and he's not just being pushed out the door? Maybe it's a mutual understanding that he's done and Arteta's done, and they're both not interested in this. Why is it always that the club is doing things? I mean, Aubameyang has to agree to want to move, and he seems ready to go. If he didn't want to go, he really could just say, I'm not interested in leaving Arsenal, not interested in leaving London. But there are offers on the table for him. So do you think that the fans also need to realize that maybe Aubameyang doesn't want to be at Arsenal anymore? And if that's the case, then it's not like he's being kicked out the back door?
Possibly. I mean, obviously, this whole situation, we've not been really told what's gone on. The sort of, I mean, it's all speculation. He was late from a trip where he was supporting his mum. That's the media spin on everything, and I guess that's to villainize Arsenal in a way. And there's a part of me I'm glad that it's kept in house, because not everything needs to be shared. But at the same time, I think with the way the fan base has been split, it'd be nice to know what's gone on, but at the same time, it's a bit too late to do that. There's no point throwing Aubameyang more under the bus, or for Arsenal to be more under the bus. If that situation was to be true. Obviously, we know Arteta made a comment about it was over his head and he wouldn't mind Aubameyang coming back into the squad, but it's up to upper management to decide what goes on. And I don't, because for me, if that's the case, I'm really intrigued to what, because the thing is, until we don't know what's gone on, it's always going to be, well, it's Arteta's fault. That's why he's not being, he's been out of form. And when you look at the background checks that Juventus and Barcelona supposedly did on the player, they found no disciplinary issues. They found no sort of issues with the player's personality. So, I mean, for both parties, I think Aubameyang has an expiry date. We've seen that at Dortmund, we've seen that at St. Etienne when he was there, and I think it's just he's run his course, and I think we've grown to being a team that doesn't need Aubameyang, and I think he's realised that as well. And for the betterment of his own career, he's now looking to be mutually agreeing that, okay, whatever comes through the door, whether it's a loan move, whether it's a permanent transfer, I'm going to do it. And maybe when he comes back after that loan move for 6 months, maybe he realizes actually London is where he wants to be and he can kick on, and maybe Arsenal realize actually we can do with a player like this in the dressing room. So it could work out to being a masterstroke from both parties. And Barcelona clearly need someone who can score the goals. They're lacking on that end product side of things because Ansu Fati's constantly injured. Dembele's injured. Obviously, they bought Ferran Torres. He's doing really well for them. But kind of their major issue is the La Liga have put in a clause where into all La Liga teams where you have to sell before you can buy, or you have to let an out go before you can register a player in. So they're kind of stuck with having to let a player go. And that player seems to be Dembele. And for me, I'd take a swap deal right now. And I know it's a very controversial thing to say, and a lot of people are going to say he's a very injury-prone player that constantly gets injured, but he's a game changer. And one of the things that we can do is rectify two birds with one stone in that signing, because he's a phenomenal output on the wing that can play left and on the right. You can bring Martinelli into the centre to fulfill that Aubameyang role anyway, and then have Lacazette for games that we feel he would bring and offer something to, and then bring the mould of an Aubameyang in the Martinelli. So they can do it. The thing is, the options are out there. And for Aubameyang, it could be good for him because it'll resurge his career. And he's not got a long left. I mean, he's 32, 33 now. So he's got to think about his final move where he can maybe go win some silverware. As bad as Barcelona are, they can win the League Cup. They can win Copa del Rey. It's not this season, but in seasons to come. And, it's a huge club, and it'll be another great club on his CV. So, and then obviously, even if he goes to Juve, it's the same thing. Again, another club with a lot of history and a lot of, a huge fan base for him to go and thrive in a league that's probably going to suit him a bit more, where it's a bit more slower. It's a bit more it could suit him with the pace he has. So I can very much see him going both ways, but I think we could take
What do you think is
advantage of
going to
Barcelona.
happen? What do you think is going to happen?
I don't think he goes.
You don't think he goes?
I just don't think because the thing is, I don't think Juventus is on the table. I just think that's one of the names being thrown. But I just think with Barcelona, unless we take Dembele and we just do kind of like a swap loan deal thing or a complete swap deal for transfers, but I don't think Barca do that because they'd want money. But even if we can do a swap for 6 months, I just see that being more realistic than him going to Juventus. But then Dembele has to go for that to happen. So it's a bit of I don't think any of them happen.
Yeah, because you have to look at Dembele's situation. And I know earlier on in the window, he had spoken to Chelsea, and we know that he has a fondness for Thomas Tuchel. That's his favorite manager. The manager loves him. And I can easily see Thomas Tuchel saying, even if we can't get you now, just wait. And so the report that I read said that Barcelona and Chelsea are looking towards the summer to get that deal done. So if it takes Dembele to leave for anything to really happen, then I think that our chances are a little bit slim here, because it doesn't feel like a lot of teams are that sold on Dembele in January. PSG might be interested, but they could wait until the summer. Why do they need him now? Chelsea, they have a lot of attackers that they're going to try to get rid of. Ziyech, Pulisic and Timo Werner are probably going to be on the chopping block next in the next transfer window. But that's then, and this is now. So Aubameyang, I can definitely see him staying. Not because we haven't tried, but because there's just too many dominoes that need to fall. And when it comes to Arsenal potentially taking on Dembele, as much as I rate him as a player, I just don't see that as something that we would do at the moment. So yeah, I would say if I had to give it like a percentage, I would say like 20%. I think Aubameyang will go. 80%, I think he'll stay, because there's just too many things that need to happen. But he is in the departure lounge. He is there, like kind of waiting to go. So we'll see how that kind of unfolds. There's 170 of you guys watching. Make sure that you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. The Truth Sets Free, thank you so much for your super chat. He says Souls is wicked cool and wicked smart. Yeah, he is. So do you guys think that Aubameyang is going to go? Let us know in the chat if you guys think that Aubameyang is going to go. Is he going to stay?
If he doesn't go, does he get reintegrated?
Well, yeah, that's I've already kind of said how I feel about it, but you haven't been on the show in a while. How do you feel about, do you think that there's a chance he'll be reintegrated? Because we've kind of seen in the past that when you're not a part of Mikel Arteta's plans, you're not a part of the plans. You don't come back in. And so if you can't replace Aubameyang, that means that he is probably your best striker, but he's been omitted from the squad. He's somebody that there's something there where it feels like he almost can't come back. But do you think that there's a way back for Aubameyang at least until the end of the season, if for some reason we're unable to move him on in this window?
From the looks of it, I mean, if there was any hope that he was coming back into the squad, he'd be in Dubai right now. And the fact that he hasn't been included in that just suggests to me, and look, for me, the mind-boggling thing is I just can't seem to see anything that he could have done that's left him in this position. Like, for not a single murmur to come out about what this disciplinary issue is, just boggles my mind to how bad it must be for them to just completely oust him. I understand his form has been poor. I understand he's been on a decline since, sort of last season. And a lot of people gave him a free pass, including myself, just because of kind of what happened. But I think if you look at the Ozil situation, up until the day he left, they just didn't play him. If they had to put him in the squad, they put him in the squad. But they really tried their best to not even have him part of the bench if they could avoid it. And, they kind of just completely ousted him. And I think that's going to be the same situation here until he just goes. And I don't know whether I like it or I don't, because I don't know what's going on. With the Ozil situation, at least we knew some part of the reason to why it happened. Whereas with the Aubameyang one, it's completely in-house and we're just here to speculate what could have happened. But if you're looking at recent form and the way that the team's playing, I just think we've grown to being better without him. And there's just too many players that would have to give way for him to come in that I just don't think it's worth it, because ESR's development, like I want ESR to go onto the left and then Martinelli to go into the middle. And that's when would probably never miss Aubameyang again, just because that's what I see in Martinelli. I see him as a centre forward. I see him as a striker that can bring that output that Aubameyang did bring. So it's difficult, but this is what they get paid millions of pounds to make that decision. They know better than we do behind the scene what's going on and whether they actually need him. And the thing is, if it comes to it, and with Lacazette and like every single striking option's injured, then yeah, that might be the only thing. Or they may just do what they did before and put a centre forward, a false nine in like a Pepe or an ESR and just go ahead with that. But I don't know. I really don't see it. I just don't see him being like gone, but I just don't see him back in the squad either.
Yeah, Yo-Yo makes a good point, and this is something that's been kind of like in the back of my mind for a while. I just didn't want to say it because I didn't want to go overboard, but they do have to register players again. They do. I believe it was around late January, early February-ish time where Ozil was omitted from the squad, and subsequently everything kind of just fell apart from there. maybe it was a little bit earlier, but we do have to re-register the squad at some point, and it'll be interesting to see what happens there. If he's not registered with the squad, that says quite a bit if he's still here. But we'll see what happens. We'll definitely see what happens with that. Let's talk Nketiah. It feels like the fan base just want this guy to go. I mean, he has no fans in the club. Like, every single player, even Callum Chambers has people that love him. Nobody likes Eddie Nketiah. And I think it's just, he never really hit any sort of height. He never really did it for us. And so it's interesting because everybody in that little group that came in before ESR and Bukayo Saka have just kind of not really done it, have they? Because Maitland-Niles is older than them, but Willock, Reece Nelson, who is just floundering in the Dutch league, really, and Nketiah, they've all kind of just they're done at Arsenal, it feels like, and it doesn't feel like anybody is like desperate to keep Nketiah around, even though he's 22 years old and he could very well get better. But he's linked to a move to Newcastle. Some people had jumped the gun and said that he was in, Newcastle about to go sign, but he is in Dubai. But the reports that had come out had said that, he is hopeful that the deal will be able to be concluded over the weekend. Newsflash, you guys, you can get deals done anywhere. You don't have to be in the same room. You don't have to be in a conference room together. It's called technology. They can get this stuff done over the weekend, really. The money may not be able to be shifted. We don't know about the money part, but signing the deal, medicals, all that kind of stuff can kind of happen anywhere. So there may still be some things happening over the weekend, but good move for Nketiah. Do you think that he could help them stay up? And do you think the players that they brought in altogether can help them stay up? Are they still missing a couple pieces? It looks like Dan Burn is there. We know Chris Wood is there. We know Bruno Guimaraes is there. And Eddie Nketiah could potentially be there. Is that enough to keep Newcastle up, or do they need something else?
I think it's a very 50-50 situation. We've seen this at Fulham as well when they signed the likes of Surrey, Schürrle, and etc. And they spent that £100 and something million when they got promoted from the Premier League. Now, of course, the difference is Newcastle have a pedigree within the Premier League in terms of survival and just being a staple piece within the Prem. And to be fair, it's very shrewd business from them, especially for the whole new the Saudi consortium coming in. It's a powerful statement, to be able to fend off a lot of competition for Bruno G. Whether that came into fruition and whether other clubs actually came in and bidded for him or not, he was a highly touted player. And he could have easily just said no to Newcastle, waited till the summer, and maybe got a bigger club move in essence. And for Eddie Nketiah to come into that, I think it could be a good move for him, especially when you look at the likes of Saint Maximin and Almiron. When you're looking at obviously even Chris Wood for him to play off of, even if they turned into a 4-4-2 and he became sort of a running behind, and he had Chris Wood to kind of be the hold-up player to play him in. It could work. The dynamics are there for him to succeed, and we know. One of the biggest keys for Nketiah to succeed is spacing behind, and Newcastle will probably get that because they are lower in the leagues, and teams are probably going to attack them a bit more. Maybe when you're playing a Burnley or etc. with those teams that like to sit back, but most teams, such as even ourselves, if we go to Newcastle, we're not going to sit back. So they will have high lines, and he might be able to exploit that, especially with Chris Wood being a strike partner. So it could be a good move for him actually, and he could very much so have that Willock effect just because of the way they could play and the style they could play could really be beneficial to him. And we've seen it with Willock, and one of the key reasons is because they don't really have a system, they don't really have a structure. It's kind of do what you want to do, and it's free flowing. It's sort of off the reins, and it's not tactical. It's not, this is your role and this is what you're going to do to help us win. No, just go do what you want to do, have fun. And I think he's just kind of that player. He's never going to be a title winning team, and he's never going to be a part of a title winning team, but he's going to be a part of a team that can get mid-table, in and around that mid-table mark, but not really anything into Europe. So Yeah, I think it's a good move for both parties. Obviously, I don't know what the fee is. I've not really looked into the transfer too much, but I'm guessing we'll get something out of it. And in terms of I think a lot of people don't like him more because of his agent than himself. And I think for me, what annoyed me was the Crystal Palace move in the summer where he didn't go due to like fees or like agent fees not being paid. And I just felt you've literally just messed your career up at this point because you're not it's not that you're not wanted here, you're just not good enough to be here. And you're showing your greed at such a young age. And, sometimes players need to take charge of situations and say to their agent, look, you're going to take what they offer you, or I'm going to get rid of you and I'm going to replace you with a different agency because this is a good move for me. And sometimes they need to grow that backbone as well. And I just think, that's what's gotten a lot of hate for him. I don't mind the player. I've got nothing against him. Look, he's a young player, up and coming. I don't really hate him or like him or feel anything towards him. It's just like, yeah, cool. You play for Arsenal. Like, good luck in the future. Hope everything works out. But I just don't see him as a threat. So I'm not really asked if he goes. Well, I want him to go, but I'm not really bothered by the transfer really.
Yeah, he's just the one Arsenal player that I see that doesn't have like a hive or stands or anything. Like it's just, oh, he's gone. Cool. Like, but he's not gone yet, you guys. There's conflicting reports. Obviously, the most concrete report was saying that they are pushing to get the deal done. Him and Dan Burn are the next two deals that should be getting done. And it's not imminent, but it should happen. So we'll see what happens. And I don't think Eddie is necessarily the trigger for the striker to come in. I think it's aubameyang. I think we're just trying to move Eddie on, just like Chambers, because they're both going to be free in the summer. And we're kind of just cleaning house a little bit and trying to get some sort of fee before the summer rolls around. So we'll definitely see what happens. There are 200 of you guys in here right now. 200. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, get in the chat box. Let us know what you guys are thinking. What are you doing on your Friday night? What are you doing? Just thinking about transfers. I mean, that's what I do on my Friday night. You know what I'm saying? So, Souls, I'm going to show you a picture and I want you to let me know what you think this means, because Arsenal fans are the best at dissecting photos and figuring out what's going on in there. So what does this mean?
Oh, yeah, I like this. I like this one. Yeah, so it's just obviously, as you know, Harry's obviously gone on a trip. I think Edu and Harry are having dinner. They're talking about transfers. They're talking about what could be coming for Arsenal, really. And I think he's just there like, look, I've made some signings. I'm having a barbecue. Transfers are transfers. And I think this is just a glass to the haters. Last time I remember when he said he was cooking barbecues and he made transfers happen. So I hope this is just a repeat of history. He's just sat there, with his like laptop open, making signings on Football Manager, and somehow miraculously they come true. So yeah, I'm positive with that one. I like that picture. It fills me with pride. It fills me with joy that something's happening. He's raising a glass to maybe Haaland, maybe Frankie de Jong. We don't know yet. We'll see.
Man, I mean, these photos that keep coming out of Edu just doing normal shit, but during the transfer window, it just means something. It's so funny. And like, I mean, obviously, like, if you put out a picture like that, you got to know that the Arsenal fan base is going to be like, what you toasted to? What are you toasted about?
Downbeat, though? Why does he look depressed? Like, he looks so like.
Well, he should be stressed. We're in the middle of a transfer window.
True.
His eyes should be bloodshot. He should not be sleeping. Like last night, I was definitely like, he better not be sleeping. He better be up on the phone, in the emails, texting, in the WhatsApp, trying to get things done. I don't want to see him looking rested and refreshed. He needs to be just run down, look like he's studying for a midterm. You know what I mean? Like, come on now.
He does look that way, to be fair. He does look a bit like, I don't know if it's just a picture or what it is, but he just looks like...
No, he looks tired. He looks... Yeah. I mean, we know what Edu usually looks like. He's usually perfectly coiffed, hair done. I mean, I can see the skin is not looking all that great. He is stressed. Yeah. And that's what I need. I need you to be stressed out.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I like the big... I mean... The thing is, look, it's 1 month, isn't it? I mean, Fabrizio Romano does it as well, and he's a journalist, so I'm expecting my club director to be really trying and pushing on things, even if they don't work out. I mean, that's the thing. As long as he's like showing the intent and he's showing that bit of like backbone in transfers, I mean, that's all we want. It's not I want Edu out. I just want him to show us that he can be competent enough to do his job. And if he is, I don't have an issue. He can stay. He can be the director of football. It's just that's all I'm looking for. And I just don't need these trolley pictures though, like that. He
Isn't
can kind
it?
of not do them.
I mean, here's the thing is also is that the club knows when things fall through and when things are done before the fans do. They know first, and then it trickles into the media and then trickles out to the fans. And the way like the timeline is kind of went is we were in the race for Vlahovic for a long time, for almost the entire window. And also the Artur rumors were going. And it was almost done. It was close to being done, or it was at least Edu had decided it was okay for us to go with the 18-month loan, and then it was vetoed. And Arteta also ended up going to the United States to talk to the Kroenkes at the same time. So, I mean, that just to me just looks like, okay, so did we bank on Vlahovic? Do we think that we were so in that deal that we didn't have a backup, or the Artur one, was it just, oh, I think I'm going to get this done, it's going to be easy, key a client, here we go, and that fell through, and then we didn't have anything like built up and ready to go? Because it just feels like those two fell through. Arteta goes to the United States, and now it feels like we're scrambling. Maybe we're not, but it feels a little bit like what's going on. And hopefully he didn't bank everything on those two transfers going through, because they both haven't worked out. And I think Vlahovic would have been a good signing, but when it comes to the midfielder signing, I just feel like that has to be right. And if the club didn't feel like the 18-month loan made sense and they were unconvinced by either the player or the terms of the deal, I'm perfectly okay with that falling through. That being said, a midfielder has got to come through. So we are going to talk about our options. What are our options? We have been slightly linked to players. We know that links don't always mean anything, but we're going to talk about it anyway. Tahir, thank you so much for your super chat. Tahir says, hey, Jess, Marina G from Chelsea wouldn't ever post a picture like this. He actually is about running Chelsea properly for success. Well, hey, fair enough. I don't think your fan
not
base is
bad.
very happy with Marina as well. Like, I mean, I don't know if eating cheese with your family and your son taking a picture of you on IG stories means you're like super unprofessional, but I get what you're trying to say there. I definitely get it. But okay, so let's start off with the midfield. I'll ask you about two links. Ruben Neves and Douglas Louise. So Ruben Neves is one that goes back a bit. We were heavily linked with him in the summer, and we know that pretty much we didn't get a midfield signing because we needed to like attack the other areas. But not only that, we couldn't like sell Granit Xhaka. But out of all of the midfielders that we were kind of linked with in the summer, that's the one that felt the most concrete. And Jorge Mendes is involved in the deal, which is kind of like, but the rumor is that we are pushing to sign Ruben Neves potentially in this window. It's something that's been worked on for a while. And I want to get your take on, does he fit? Is that the right person? And then also the connected deal to it, which is Jose Mourinho wants Granit Xhaka now, and we would be able to move Granit on a loan with an obligation to buy and potentially bring in somebody like Ruben Neves. Is that the step up, the midfield change? Is that what you're looking for in terms of the midfield turning over? We've spoken about this so much, and we've went through Basuma and Noir. We've spoken about Ruben Neves, Bruno Guimaraes. Is Ruben Neves what you were thinking about, or do you think that I'll just let you go ahead, go with it. What do you think about the Ruben Neves shit?
I quite like it. He's not a top draw. He's not a household name. He's not one of those flashy players that's in the trends and everything like that every team wants. But what he offers you is everything that we kind of need right now. And he's still young. He's still developing his game, but he also offers you the stability of being a lone six, but he can also offer you a double pivot role. He can do a lot. And also, one of the big things with him, he can offer you a long shot. He can offer you free kicks. And there's a lot that he can offer, which Granit Xhaka does, but he can do it a little bit more consistently. But one of the big things with him is he doesn't have those rash moments in him. And I think that's one of the key things when we look for a midfield replacement for Granit Xhaka. It's not the profile, it's more the extra things you get with Xhaka, such as the red card, such as the anger and the temperament that he has. But you also, with Ruben Neves, you get that leadership as well. He can offer you, tempo control, dictation of games, and forward passing. And then when you also look at, the roles he can play within midfield as well, if you want to play him next to Partey in a double pivot, he can do that as the deep lying playmaker onto the left hand side or onto the right. But you can also bring him as a lone six and go into the 4-3-3 and be a bit more expansive, but have that base in midfield and supporting that defense as well. So there's a lot for me that it makes sense, and the price point when you look at it as well, like we could be getting somewhere around 20 million for Xhaka, and we could be spending 30 million for Ruben Neves, which, to be fair, for an extra 10 million pounds, you're always going to be spending somewhere around that kind of money to bring in a Premier League proven midfielder, and to get it out of Wolves as well, who are playing really well at the moment and probably don't want to lose him. It'd be something phenomenal for us. And when you look at the Douglas Louise, it's similar, but I feel like there's a bit more athleticism with him, and there's a bit more flair to the way he plays on the ball. And of course, on the eye, he's going to look better. But I don't know, because for me, John McGinn's the one who stands out for me in that midfield. But then Douglas Louise does his thing, and maybe he does it silently, but he's also the one thing that for me stands out is the fact he plays in a 4-2-3-1 system, or he plays in that sort of system that we're trying to implement, similar formation and structure. So he's already familiar with it. So the sort of time for him to adapt and get used to the system is probably going to be less. So that's always going to be advantageous in some degree. But for me, either one I think Ruben Neves out of the two would be my priority to go for first, and then I'd look for Douglas Louise as a secondary option. But either one that comes in, I think even if we're looking at 18 months of 2 seasons, you definitely get 2 seasons of solid football before really needing to elevate just to be able to compete for the title. But Ruben Neves, for me, just has that scope. He has that well-roundedness to his game that could offer you a lot of stability going forward. And I see him being somewhat of a quiet leader on the pitch as well. So I'm happy if it's one of the two. I'm not too fussed which one, but Ruben Neves would be ideal for our situation currently.
Yeah, I mean, they both offer something. And just for the people that are like, okay, so what's the deal with Douglas Louise is, again, it's one of those with conflicting reports. But when originally, I brought it up to you guys, he is in the midst of maybe potentially trying to get a new deal. But the most recent reports coming out of pretty reliable sources, Birmingham sources, is that they are listening for offers. They are listening to offers for Douglas Louise in this window, should they come. But they've already turned back a $30 million offer from an unnamed club. I don't know if it's Arsenal. I don't know if it's who. People are saying it's Man City. Why would you sell him to Aston Villa and then turn around and buy him back? That's weird, because he was at Man City before. But it's an interesting one, because it's Douglas Louise, for me, is somebody that I wouldn't want to spend more than 25 million on. I don't think he's a 30, $40 million midfielder. I think if you're going to spend that amount, you go get Basuma, you get the elite level version of what you're trying to get. But good player, would improve us, is somebody that could, like you said, could play defensive central midfielder, but also play as left center midfield in a 3. He could do different things. He's tidy on the ball, and he's Premier League proven. And I do think that Arteta, and this is me projecting, but I think Arteta prefers Premier League proven talent. That's why Neves keeps getting brought up. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is a little bit ahead of the pecking order of some of our other options, because, sometimes you do need somebody that is just used to being in the league. So Douglas Louise is an interesting option, but if I had to choose between the two of them, I would say if I had to spend 35 million in this window, who would I rather spend it on? It would be Ruben Neves. I think he has just a little bit more to his game, and he does have the leadership part that we need in midfield. And he's one of the better midfielders in the league, and I don't think Douglas Luiz is necessarily that. I think that he's a good, solid midfielder, but I think Ruben Neves has him beat there. So we'll see if anything happens with that. We were willing to go um, with our tour. So, I mean, it looked like we were looking for a loan in this window, but now potentially we're looking to spend the money. Maybe that's why Arteta went to the Cronkies to say, like, hey, we need to push the boat out because, like, literally, we're not getting our number one striker. So we need to kind of shift some things around. Or they see it as an opportunity to really try and get into that top four and push the boat out on somebody that could kind of push us forward. So we'll see what happens with that. I do think Xhaka has to leave for that to happen, though. So we'll definitely see. But moving on to the striker situation, there's Dominic Calvert-Lewin, there's Jonathan David, and there's Isak. And kind of going with the theme of the one that's most quiet might be the one that we go with. That could be Isak. That one hasn't really had it's a lot of people said we're interested, but there's been nothing else beyond that. There was a report that came out a couple of weeks ago when we were more heavily linked with Vlahovic that kind of on the opposite was like we had already kind of secured terms for Isak. I don't know if it's true or not, but Isak could be one. ESPN said that we could put in a late bid for Jonathan David. And somebody that reports for Everton was saying that Everton are actually bracing themselves for bids for Dominic Calvert-Lewin in these last couple of days. So what do you think is going to happen? Who do you think it is? Do you think we're going to get the striker in? I mean, if you had to choose one, just give me your thoughts on those three options right there. Do you think there's something out of left field that can show up?
I mean, it's just been announced that obviously Lampard is set to take the Everton job, so that could potentially swing things for Calvert-Lewin, potentially keeping him in, just because obviously we know what Lampard is. He's a lot of childhood heroes. He's a player in England who's admired, and he is a legend of the game. And regardless of how he's been as a manager, that can definitely influence a player's choice to potentially stay and just see what he can do. So potentially with that news, we could be looking at, him not being in the running up, or it could go the other way around where Lampard needs to sell him to have funds available to be able to bolster the squad in the summer and to take the money now just so he can be prepared for the summer. So it's going to be a difficult one that now, especially with this situation, because I'm sure Calvert-Lewin wants to know who the manager is going to be, and I don't think he has any sort of urgency to get out of Everton and want to make that move because it can happen in the summer for him. But when I'm looking at it, for me, with how far along in the window we've gone without hearing a murmur, it's got to be something that can be easily done. And that's kind of where my head goes to Isak, because it is just a release clause you have to submit, not to Real Sociedad, but to La Liga offices. And you don't need to negotiate directly with the club. You can just literally speak to Isak and just have terms agreed and be like, right, okay, we need to get the funds together. Just hold on, and that's it. And you don't need to negotiate further. You already know what contract to offer the player. It's basically the Thomas Partey saga, where we already knew what contract he wanted. This is what he wanted. These were his demands, etc. And then we just submitted the release clause and went in and got Partey. Jonathan David would require negotiations with Lille, and just being able to kind of negotiate a fee with the club and the player. So something would have come out of the camps, and I think that's a lot harder to keep quiet than something like a release clause being triggered. And I think the same for Calvert-Lewin, especially being another English club. Somewhere there would be a leak. As much as you want to keep things quiet, unless you're making the move imminently in terms of like you're making it in a few days' time, there's got to be something coming out of the club, like especially with how long it's taking. So every time I think about it, it goes to Isak. Every time I kind of think about who's the likelihood to keep quiet, it's probably Isak, because the only people that need to keep this quiet is Isak and his agency or whoever else is involved in the negotiation. So that's a lot easier to keep in control than it is for a Jonathan David, because you've got club representatives coming in, and anyone out of that could let the news go. Then you've got, the player himself. So it's a lot harder to contain news. And then when you've got English media and outlets and knowing that you're negotiating with Everton, that's surely coming out. So my conclusion would be Isak's the likely signing. But I would not be surprised if it just became Calvert-Lewin and we went completely wayward, and it's not even any three of them. And we just had someone lined up, and I just don't know who that could be, but just something bizarre, wayward, left field. But
the consensus is that somebody must come in. Like, I don't think Arsenal can get through this.
David. Yeah.
You said Isak, Calvert-Lewin,
David. That would be my order if I was to rank them to who would come in.
Yeah. So Tahir, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, as a Chelsea fan, I'd hate this. You guys need a Declan Rice type player if Arsenal are ever going to be serious about trophies. I think in the end of the day, like, it's easier for a Chelsea fan to say that because you guys are in a position where you guys can just spend the money. You guys are further ahead, but Arsenal are very much at the beginning of a rebuild. And so we have to buy players that are kind of within our scope. We've seen that we tried to buy a Declan Rice level striker, and we couldn't get him because we can't compete at that level right now. So Declan Rice is somebody that I know the Arsenal fan base really likes, but I just don't think will be in the conversation. So we have to focus on players that we can actually get that will improve us and just go at our own speed. We're just not really at that place right now. The Truth Sets Free, thank you so much for your super chat. Says Neves would be great for Arsenal, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there are levels to this, but there are players that are in a level that could improve us, but maybe aren't the top level, and that's fine. We tried to go for the top level, and we saw how we got kind of slapped around. We're not really there yet, but I don't blame the club for going after their top target. I really don't. Let's see. Sam says Neves is a top quality. He doesn't really have any weaknesses, wins and keeps possession really well, and can ping a beautiful pinpoint pass. Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything. I think the one thing I don't like about him is that I don't think that he has the ability to cover ground. You kind of have to be the possession team or hold the shape. And I've only really seen him in teams that hold the shape very well, where he doesn't have to run very much. They have bodies in midfield. So I still think at some point you need to get somebody that can cover ground. We don't have that, but he has everything else, and you're never going to get a player that has absolutely everything except for if you're at the tip top of the market. And so Ruben Neves does have a lot of things. Olivier says Rice is a sure thing, but not Dusan. Yeah, some people are still not 100% on Dusan Vlahovic. Like, they're not sure if he would actually been as good as we all thought he was. Yo-Yo says, I reckon it'll be a surprise like Schick. Is that somebody that you'd be interested in seeing in an Arsenal shirt?
I don't mind him. I think he's got good attributes, but for me, it's the fee. Like, I don't know how much I'd want to go up to. And again, I mean, if we're looking at Isak, someone who's not really a proven goal scorer, but has the ability to play in this fluid formation that we sometimes implement. I think when you look at Schick and look at his strengths, his aerial presence, he's a phenomenal goal scorer. He is clinical. And he's an exciting young player as well. So he does fit a lot of the sort of boxes that Arsenal are looking for in any of their positions. So he'd be an exciting player to see. And especially, I think he'd come on the cheaper mark, maybe around 20-30 million pounds. That could definitely be some, because we've also got to look at future proofing our team as well in terms of Lacazette's going, Aubameyang, whenever he goes, but he's looking like he's a goner. And then Nketiah is going. So we literally will have no striking options come the summer. So even if we went for Schick now and then gone and got like a Calvert-Lewin or an Isak or a David, in the summer, it's still a player we would need past the summer. So yes, I would be excited for that, even if it became a second option for us.
Yeah, I have to be honest. Schick doesn't do anything for me. Like, if he came in, I'd be like, but I'd back him, but I'd still be like, oh my God, can we get somebody else? Like, come on. Let's see. You guys do have some questions here. If you guys want to drop some questions, please feel free to do so. Jag, I am in America, and Souls is in the UK. Let's see. Let's see. CJ says, Jess, in your opinion, if Abba isn't allowed back in the squad, don't you feel Arteta should come out and be honest about the situation in the spirit of repairing the relationship between the fans and the club? No, I don't. I don't think that we need to know more than what we already know. We know that he was omitted from the squad because he was misbehaving, and I don't think fans want to know what's going on behind the scenes until they actually hear the truth. And we've seen that there were moments where Arteta has told the truth and the fans didn't like it. So I think you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. I think the biggest indication of for me that it's okay to move on from Aubameyang was the team moving on from him. Going into December and scoring 20 goals and looking like they did not miss him at all was a big enough indication for me personally that I don't need an explanation about Aubameyang. If they want to move on from him and he wants to move on from Arsenal, I'm perfectly okay with that. If they want to bring him back in, fine. But I have mentally checked out from some of these players. I have got to be honest with you guys. The Lenos, the Aubameyangs, the Xhakas, these are, I think, we're just in a season where we need to move on from them. And so needing some sort of confirmation from Arteta about what's happened, for me, it doesn't change the result. So I don't need to know. I don't feel like there's anything sinister going on. I think we're pretty clear on what's gone on at the base level. We don't need to know what they've been texting back and forth. Literally, he was omitted from the squad because he was misbehaving. He missed the time that he was supposed to come back, to training. He was stripped of the captaincy, and the team has moved on. It is what it is for me. Souls, do you need an explanation from Arteta about what's going on with Aubameyang, especially if we don't bring him back into the squad?
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, if the whole sort of the team and the squad's morale was down and we weren't performing and we didn't have that sort of resurgence, should we say, where we started scoring 20 odd goals in 5 games or something, then yes, I would want an explanation to why this has happened, because clearly there's something that's caused a disruption within the harmony of the team. But because it's not phased anyone, I'm just going to respect their decision for keeping it in house and not throwing a player under the bus. And I think this is one of those times where actually we should be respecting them for keeping something quiet, because let's say they came out and Aubameyang did do something which was, okay, you know what, not unforgivable, but it was as bad as, they're making it out, multiple disciplinary issues, whatever it may be. Maybe he's breaching protocols every single time about COVID, going out when he shouldn't be going out, and and he could be causing a lot of risk to the team. Then of course, you keep it in house. Don't add fuel to the fire that's already there, and just keep it, in my opinion, just keep it in house and not make the situation worse. I mean, look, it's happened so long ago now. What's the point of, bringing up old wounds? It's done. If they've not told us, tough luck. We're never going to know. And it's not for us to know. And I don't really care at this point. I just want the team performing. And as long as that's happening, there's no explanation needed. If the team's performance dipped, I'd want an explanation to what the hell went on. So that's for me, my opinion and my take on it.
Yeah, and I really don't want to relitigate was Aubameyang wrong for going to see his sick mom. The club allowed him to go, so nobody thinks that that's the wrong thing to do. The issue is that he didn't come back in time at the specified time, and it also has something to do with COVID protocols, which are important. I know some people don't think they are, but they are, and he didn't do it. And some people feel like the stars of teams shouldn't have to follow the rules, and because they're the best people in the squad, we should kind of bend the rules for them. Not only is he not one of the best players in the squad, but he's also the captain. So you have to uphold the standard. And he's not, peak Aubameyang. He was missing sitters left and right. So he made it very easy to be omitted from the squad. And maybe Arteta was looking for a reason. And when I say misbehaving, I'm saying he didn't come back in time. And they agreed on the time and he didn't. And so it is what it is,
But
so it's
on that as
go
well,
ahead.
I think even let's just say hypothetically he comes back on time and everything like that. I just think that there must have been something more. I don't think they would have admitted him just for seeing his mum. Like, yeah, look, we've all worked in corporations, we've all worked for businesses, and things happen, especially flights when you're out of the country. Sometimes, especially in this whole COVID bubble, like I was about to miss the flight I was on because rules changed as we were flying. You know, the country I was in Pakistan, they wanted one thing from all the passengers before they could fly out to the UK, whereas with the UK didn't require that from us. So the rules are a bit confusing. So something could have happened, but I just think he's done something, or he's done something which they didn't agree to. Whether it is the tattoo, for example, or whether it is like he went out for a dinner or something which wasn't authorized by the club, due to
I mean,
COVID
they were
restrictions.
also they were
So
also irritated about at the beginning of the season when he went to a birthday party or had a birthday party for somebody right before the season, and that was what people assumed was the reason why he had COVID right before the season. So these things have already kind of happened. Like, this is just so old at this point, and because we've already been there, done that with Ozil, and I just feel like we're beyond this. The whole, okay, he's been exiled and all that kind of stuff. We don't know whether or not he said, I don't want to play for
yeah.
Arsenal. Find me a move. Everybody's assuming that the club has just done him so dirty, and I'm just not really sure that I actually believe that. And I'm actually okay with what's going on. I really am not worried about aubameyang coming back into the squad. I couldn't. I have checked out from the aubameyang thing, to be quite honest. I have to be really honest about that. Jay No One says, is anyone else scared that Jack Wilshere is pictured with the number 12 on the training kit rather than the JW he usually wears? Late deadline move on. Souls, are you worried about Jack Wilshere getting a number, or do you think it's okay?
No, it's fine. I mean, the thing is, look, people read into so much, like they've dug deep on this one. And for me, I just think, look, there's training tops. Sometimes they may have just forgotten to bring the JW on and just had a number there. I mean, look, if he signs or he doesn't sign, it doesn't really matter at this point. He's not going to be used. He might just be a number there, if anything. But look, nah, I do think it's funny how they pictured him alone with the number 12 like training top on.
Mm-hmm.
I bet that was deliberate. I do think that was like intentionally planned, uh, like sort of social media post. But no, it's just a training top at the end of the day. It doesn't mean much. I don't know what you think. I just
um,
don't think it does.
I'm not that worried about it. I don't think he's going to show up and play against Wolves. He's being linked to moves to in Championship in Greece. I just think that's the top that was there, and he put it on, and everybody had numbers. So there you go. Thoughts on Lampard at Everton? Do you think that that's the right move for them? I mean, they've done some Ancelotti's and Rafa Benitez's. And now they're going with a younger manager. I think when you look at Lampard, like obviously he was at Derby County and then he ended up at Chelsea, and it was too big of a step up for him. I think he did okay with them. I mean, he got them into the top four, but everything crumbled the season after. And one thing that we do know about Chelsea and the Chelsea players is when they're done with the manager, they will get you sacked. They will just say, forget it, I'm done. And they kind of had that moment with Lampard because honestly, that team saying that they didn't want to play anymore was really the resurgence of Arsenal at the back end of that season. Because we beat Chelsea 3-1, remember? And then Lampard was like sacked really quickly after that. But I didn't really feel like they played bad football. I just think that it was a bad fit at the moment. But do you think Everton is the right level for Lampard? I remember he was very close to getting the Norwich job and he waited. And now the Everton one is available. What do you think on Lampard can do at Everton?
I think the reason why it didn't work out at Chelsea was because if you look at his first season, everything looked promising, and I think it's because he didn't have a lot to deal with. The pressure wasn't on him to perform because there was a transfer ban. They had the whole like you had to use young players. There was no funds, but there was nothing available to go and bolster his squad with. So there was no real expectation set on him in terms of you've got to get top four, you've got to win the league, you've got to do this. So he was a bit more relaxed and he could play his football. And obviously having no crowds, having no fans in the stadium really helps that as well, because let's be honest, like even our fan base, Chelsea's fan base, they are a demanding fan base in terms of if the football isn't great, it is going to be known, by the fans. They're going to boo in the stadium, etc. But I think it's a bit of a with Everton, it's a bizarre one because I just feel like every manager's set there to fail because there's no real structure. I feel like their signings are a bit like, what was your thought process in bringing this player in? Because it doesn't fit what you have, and they're just like they're just too many pieces that just don't go together, and they don't really have a cohesive squad. And that's kind of what my major issue with them is. I think when Ancelotti came in, the signings he brought in made a lot of sense because it brought a foundation to build on. And then they just started buying players, like for example, they had that window where they brought in like 4 number 10s, and I was like, why? To just play them out wide and have one up front. And it was just, they're such a, as much as they spend money, I just feel like they've not really got intelligent footballing brains running the show. So as long as Lampard can maybe have an influence in how this squad is being built, and because the thing is, he does have pull. He can pull young English talent, especially out of Chelsea, like he did at Derby when he bought Mason Mount out on loan and turned him into the star in that team and got him, I think, in top 4 of the Championship or something. So he could do something with Everton, and especially if they can hold on to Calvert-Lewin, they've got Ben Godfrey there, they've got Pickford, they've got a good core of English players, and then they can bolster that with loan moves and bringing in players just to help with the project. So it could be a good move if they listen to him and bring in. And for me, their big thing is structure. They've got the money and they've got, well, I don't know if they've been approved of the new stadium, but they have a new stadium being built. All they now need is someone in the back room who understands football. And I think they could become the Aston Villa of if they take it seriously.
It's so interesting because it's going to be Gerrard, Lampard, Vieira, right? And then Arteta.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't like really on their level. Let's keep it real. Like Vieira and Gerrard and Lampard were like superstars.
Oh yeah, the greats,
and Arteta was kind of like the level below. But now the legends of clubs and players that played in a time where I was very like the Premier League was like prime the Premier League. These players are now managers, and it's interesting to watch them grow up, whatever. But yeah, and you guys, when the whole like, how do you if you don't get a striker, how do you not bring Aubameyang back? We didn't bring Ozil back into the squad. We omitted him from the squad and didn't have a single creative player in that Arsenal side. We suffered through it because it was a bigger message to be sent there that we'd rather go without a single creative player than bring this guy back in. So you think that the club won't do it. And one of the reports on Eddie Nketiah did say that Arsenal will keep him if they can't find a replacement. So if they can't sell Aubameyang, but they don't want to use him, they'll just keep Nketiah and go with Lacazette and Eddie. We know that sending a message sometimes and keeping your non-negotiables or whatever are sometimes a bigger thing for Arteta in this hierarchy than footballing. Sometimes it's not footballing reasons, it's other reasons. So it could happen, you guys. Like, I'm telling you, it could happen that he's not in the squad and we go with Eddie and Lacazette for the rest of the season because, we couldn't replace Aubameyang, but we don't want to keep Aubameyang in the squad. Like that's kind of what it is. Geoff says, Arsenal. She knows Arsenal. Do you think Arteta could do like he did with Saka and ESR when he introduced them, but with Patino and maybe Miguel Aziz in midfield since he got recalled from his loan? I'd like to, maybe. I think we just don't have, first of all, I think Saka and ESR were on a different level at this point than Patino and Aziz are right now. I think Saka was ready to come into the squad. And ESR also had went on like a loan, and he already been on several loans, and he was kind of ready to go. After watching Patino against Nottingham Forest, I have to say that I think it's a little bit early for him, but it also was a really difficult match. And if he's as good as people think he is, he'll grow, and he'll be fine. He looks like somebody that may not go on loan. He's somebody that I could see just sticking around the squad until he's ready to go. But I'm not sure if it's this season. Aziz is a little bit different. He may be able to play a game here or there, but with Sambi and El Neni, Xhaka and Thomas Partey, I don't see where those minutes are coming from because we're not really playing cups. So I think these are things to think about maybe next season when we're back in cups and we're starting over and they've grown a little bit more. But Souls, what do you think about that question about Aziz and Patino?
Patino physically isn't developed enough to play Premier League football, or not at least consistently. He's still a man in a boy's body, and that's kind of just the easiest way to sum him up at the moment. Technically, yes, he has got the ability to come in and do what Saka and ESR have done, but he just needs the physical development. And look, the thing is, because we've been so kind of like spoiled with like young talent, especially recently in terms of sub 22 mark have been some of our best performers. We've just come accustomed to, oh yeah, Patino, yeah, he should be able to do it because Saka and Nias have done it, without realizing that there are certain fundamentals they need to have. Like Aziz is different because physically he's a monster. Like he looks like a beast. He's ready to play Premier League football and hang around with the big lads. And that's the difference. That's why I think there's a lot more faith in Aziz doing something than a Patino. I just think let Patino play his football, let him have cup minutes. Obviously, if we were still in cups, he would probably get more minutes to feature in. But I just think he needs to physically develop a little bit more before I can sit there and go, yeah, he could get minutes. I just don't see it. Not in the Premier League anyway.
Yeah, I agree with that 110%. Just to recap, Matthew D'Souza, we mostly talked about in terms of outgoings, aubameyang and nketiah. Nothing is like 100%, but it's something to watch at the last minute of this transfer window because anything can happen. But if those two players go, I would imagine that we would be bringing in a striker. But if they don't go, it might be a little bit of a we'll just wait until the summer. So we'll definitely see with that. But we will end it there. This was a very enjoyable Friday conversation. I loved it. You guys, I'll be back every single day until the end of the transfer window. Sorry. And then I'll be doing the deadline stream with Arsenal Vision. So make sure you guys tune in for that. Hopefully we're talking about players coming in and excitement and all of that, and not, oh my gosh, like what has actually happened. We have not signed anybody. But Souls, can you let everybody know where they can find you?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've got it right for the first time. Yeah,
I can never do it. Like I literally can never.
Yeah, I always have to check like which side is this. Okay, yeah, I can't do it. My brain doesn't work great that way. But yeah, no, you can find me on Gunnar Souls, and obviously you can find me on the show here anyway. Yeah, it was a pleasure, obviously having a good chat on a Friday night, chilled out, not being so angry and negative. Like I do, so I love Twitter because it does make your day, but sometimes, oh my days. It could be a cesspool, but yeah,
sometimes it's very intense. So I agree with that. The truth sets free. Thank you so much for your gracious super chat. I really appreciate it. You guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. There's about 200 and something of you guys here. I want to see the likes when I get out of here. Subscribe to the channel. Let somebody know about the channel if they're like, oh my gosh, Arsenal content is so dead. Bring them over here. Let them know that we have something going on. And I do want to see more of you guys here when we're doing our match reactions, when we're doing our previews and stuff like that. I know that a lot of us just get involved when it's transfer time, but we do cover Arsenal all season long. So please make sure you join us then. I really appreciated it. You guys, it was so much fun, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And if I don't see you guys, then yeah, bye guys.